Hello, Namaskar,
Jai
Jai
Guru.
Guru.
Jai Guru.
So,
Namaskar.
we are back again. So, we have crossed all levels of fear, and that was the topic for last episode. And two fearless figures are on screen today, once again. So, what we had discussed after the last session was with fear. Wonderfully, you had said that day that there is a vicious cycle, right? Fear brings frustration, frustration brings more fear, and it goes on and on, right? We
Right.
get into a spiral. Now, out of fear, what comes as a natural gift is sadness, sorrow, grief, misery, whatever you name it as. These are different forms of the same feeling at different level. So today's topic is about misery or sadness. So yeah, over to you.
Sure. As you rightly said, I think the natural progression from fear or weakness is grief or sadness or misery. Let's understand the root cause of misery or the root cause of grief. I think the primary cause of grief is loss of something. So when we lose something that we are very attached to, we are gripped or affected by misery or sadness. So when we lose somebody very close to us, a close family member, a friend, when we lose health, when we lose our reputation, when we lose an important material possession that we are attached to, we get affected by grief. So it is the loss of something that leads to grief. I believe that's the primary cause of grief. And if we kind of dive a little deeper, one thing that comes out very clearly, that loss becomes very painful when we are attached to the object or attached to something or someone. And when we are attached to something very much or attached to somebody very much, and when we lose that, it becomes extremely painful. Anything you would like to add?
Yeah, loss brings that sadness or misery. And now what I was thinking is, see, sometimes, not sometimes, often losing faith in ourselves. That is also very important. We don't even realize that we are losing faith in ourselves, our power, how powerful we are. So that also brings sadness in a way. And when I talk of losing faith in ourselves, there is a very catchy term these days, new age term, FOMO, fear of missing out. So
Right.
if there is any FOMO, fear of missing out, that matters, it is fear of missing out on ourselves.
Correct.
That we don't have time to know ourselves, and that brings fear. That brings naturally, after fear, the natural outcome is sadness. And perhaps our Thakurji, our Guru, said that desire unfulfilled is misery, right? At times we desire to get many things, most of which or many of those are unrealistic. We don't know to get what we want, what to do, how to do. We're not doing that, so naturally getting will not happen, and that brings misery.
Right.
Yeah.
So essentially, it is our desire, and loss is nothing but a desire which was not fulfilled. So now the question is, how do we overcome grief, or how do we overcome sadness? You quoted Sri Sri Thakur Anukul Chandra, desire unfulfilled is misery. And then he says, Do not expect anything. Be prepared for every situation. What can grief do to you? So essentially he is saying that don't expect anything, don't be attached, don't desire. But is it really possible? It's easier said than done. I remember reading this in one of the books when a man came to Sri Sri Thakur and said, Thakur, you are saying don't desire anything. How is it possible? We are all materialistic people. We live in a materialistic world. How is it possible that we don't desire? Sri Sri Thakur said, okay, if you don't want to stop your desires, that's okay. You can still desire, but can you expand your desire? He asked Thakur, what do you mean by that? He said, don't just desire for yourself, also desire for others. If you want happiness, it's okay. You expect happiness, you desire happiness, that's absolutely okay. But also at the same time, you desire the happiness for your neighbors, for others in the society. He says if you are attached to your child, is absolutely okay, no problems. But can you treat every child in this world as your child? So he is talking about expansion. I remember one interesting incident from Sri Sri Thakur Anukul Chandra's life. One day Sri Sri Thakur was sitting with his devotees and having a conversation, and he suddenly asked them, do you think that I also don't get affected by grief? Don't you think that I also become sad sometimes? I do become sad. I do get affected by grief. And Thakur went on to say that when he lost his mother, Mata Manmohini Devi, he was under tremendous grief and sorrow. For many days, he did not eat. He was crying. He was missing his mother like anything. Sri Sri Thakur Anukul Chandra says, one day something happened, and that grief disappeared from my mind, from me forever. He said, one day I was sleeping. In the sleep, I saw a dream that I have gone to an unknown place, an unknown land, and suddenly I met my mother there. And my mother and I started crying because we met each other after a long time. And I was wondering what happened. How come I'm seeing my mother here, but my mother is no more? And both Thakur is saying, I hugged my mother hugged me, and we are just crying. After some time, a few people arrived there. There were elderly people, there were children, there were young men and women. They were very happy to see my mother, and my mother was also very happy to see them. The children were coming and embracing my mother. Some children were pulling her hands. So it was a very beautiful scene. And my mother pulled out a few sweets, chocolates, etc. from her bag and started distributing them. They were so happy. My mother was so happy. Suddenly I got up. My dream was over. And a thought came to my mind. Thakur is saying, a thought came to my mind. I thought, my mother is not only my mother. She is the mother of the universe. She was with me as long as there was a need for her to be with me. Now, she is needed elsewhere. She has a need to be somewhere else. She is not just my mother. She is the mother of the universe. The moment, Thakur is saying, the moment I had an expanded thought that my mother is the mother of the universe, not just my mother, the grief went away. I think somewhere Thakur has said, it is expansion which is delight, expansion which is life, expansion which is love. I think the best way to overcome grief is to expand our horizon, expand ourselves, and whatever we desire not only for us, but for everybody else. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's what Thakur said, that expansion is life and contraction is death. And that
Correct.
is what we see in cosmology also, like black hole. So black hole is synonymous to death of a star, right? Ultimate fate of a
Yeah.
star. So black hole, when it turns into black hole, when it condenses so much at a very small space, so that is contraction. And so contraction is equivalent to death. And you started by saying that fear of losing brings grief. Now, there is another fear, another feeling that comes in us, a feeling of not having things, that I am not having this, I am not having that, right? My insufficiency in me, just a feeling. I was reading the other day a book by Matt Haig. I'll just read few lines from that. Viewers, please pardon me for reading from the book. Few lines. He goes on saying, like, the feeling that we suffer from is, I am not popular enough. Excuse me. I am not good enough. I am not strong enough. I am not lovable enough. I am not attractive enough. I am not cool enough. I am not hot enough. I am not clever enough. I am not funny enough. I am not educated enough. I am not literary enough. I am not rich enough. I am not posh enough. I am not young enough. I am not tough enough. I am not well traveled enough. I am not talented enough. I am not cultured enough. I am not smooth skinned enough. I am not thin enough. I am not muscular enough. I am not famous enough. I am not interesting enough. I am not worth enough. And many more, maybe. And these are the thoughts which trouble us day in and day out. But what is the way out? He says, all those not travel enough, not talented enough, remove all this. Then what remains in each of the sentences is, I am enough.
Wonderful.
So when that
That is expansion.
Yeah, I am enough. And then the next step comes, as prescribed by Thakur. Thakur will let me know who I am. And it's a very scientific way of going within ourselves. And it's a science, and that is what is spiritual science. And Sisi Thakur,
Absolutely.
Chandra has given a very simple technique to delve deep into our inner space. So if we can do that, then we'll be able to say, not only able to say that I am enough, in the extreme case means towards the end of our journey, successful journey, we will be in a position to say, or at least have a feeling that I am that. So it might sound
Beautiful.
big, but nothing impossible. And that is the destination, our destination.
Lovely.
Your thought?
No, absolutely. I think this is. I think what you said is really profound. So, if you have to really conclude based on our discussion, I think the cause of fear is on one hand, it is the loss of something. On the other hand, it is the fear of losing what we have already. And it's also probably expecting something and not getting it. I think it could be any of this, and which could lead to grief, sadness, or sorrow. But Sri Sri Thakur Anukul Chandra has given a very powerful technique to overcome this, which we just discussed.
Yeah, and we'll be discussing more on this, different facets of it, because in life, all our feelings, everything is connected to everything else, right? We don't live in isolated chambers. So, viewers, we had started with the topic on fear. Fear naturally progresses into grief, misery, and we'll find the chain will continue. Next week we'll be meeting again, and as we requested you in the last episode, please do comment, share, and give your suggestions, valuable suggestions. We'll be meeting again. Bye bye. Jai Guru.
Bye bye. Jai Guru.